Hello, good evening, everyone. We are going to begin. Welcome to the 2026 election hustings here in Trinity for senators. It's great to see so many of you on such a warm evening, so thank you very much for making the time. I'm Hannah Shelswell, and I'm taking us through the proceedings this evening until 9 o'clock. And we are live streaming as well on the Vote.j YouTube account, so hello to everyone who is joining us online this evening. Just to let you know that you can access closed captions by pressing the button at the bottom of your screen. A recording will also be available and uploaded to both the Vote.j website and to YouTube after the event. Now, I am sure that you are aware, but you can only vote for 9 candidates who've put themselves forward for this role. There are 9 island-wide seats. As we have done at every hustings, and there's been quite a few of them now, we've drawn lots as to where everyone is sitting in the interest of fairness. But in alphabetical order, your candidates are Martin Aliga, Tom Binney, Mark Boliat, Alan Brecken, Carl Bush, Guy DeFay, Lyndon Farnham, Ian Gorst, Serena Kirsten Guthrie, Mary Lehegarat, Alan Lepavu, Steve Luce, Alan McLean, who are all independent candidates. Sam Mezek, Reform Jersey, and then Helen Miles, Elaine Miller, and Bernard Place, who are also independent candidates. They've all agreed that they will speak for 2 minutes tonight to deliver their speeches, and then we're going to open the floor for questions. So I keep everyone on track with this bell, so apologies, you are going to hear this quite a lot tonight, but they like to know when they've got 30 seconds to go. And then when it's a minute, well, when it's time, so when it's 2 minutes, and that's when they have to stop talking. So let's get going. This evening, it is Steve Luce who is going to kick off with the speeches, so I will get the timer at the ready. So Steve, over to you. Thank you.
At this, our 10th hustings, it's finally great to be able to say good evening to my fellow parishioners. I spent the first 8 years of my farming career here in Trinity, but my roots in the parish go back much further. In the late 1800s, my great-grandfather ran the bakery and post office just up the road. My grandfather was born there and raised there. Indeed, one of my most cherished family photos, 1919, Papa Luce in the Trinity football team. So I'm feeling very much at home. I'm running for senator because I believe that ministers should be senators. And if I'm fortunate enough to get re-elected, I would seek to keep my present role of Environment Minister. It's been a real honour to represent everything land and sea. I'm passionate about our wonderful environment and working with our farming and fishing communities. I want to do all I can to keep those brown cows in green fields. And while I'm here, can I say that I was on the RJA Council back in the 90s when the decision was taken to sell Springfield and move here. And what a decision that's proved to be. The ethos, the generosity, and the foresight of the Royal Society embodies everything that is good about our island. And our wonderful Jersey cow promotes us around the entire globe. What an ambassador she has been for us all. The next few years are going to be challenging, but I've got a proven track record of working with others to get things done. In the next term of government, I would wish to bring forward an island plan that provides nursing homes, affordable housing, light industrial sites, but let's use redundant buildings first. I want to continue to work with farmers to put more locally grown food on our plates to help with the cost of living. And I want to make long-term plans to make sure we all have enough water in the decades to come as our planet continues to warm. If you could consider me for one of your votes for Senator, I'd be very grateful. Thank you.
Guy DeFay.
I think you all need to know what's really going on. Many years ago, when I arrived for a new job at Channel Television, I was given a desk, typewriter, and when I opened a drawer, there was a copy of the Masonic yearbook. I followed that with some interest. At the time, the Masons and the Methodists were quite strong influences in the States Assembly. But they faded, and a new group has turned up that no one really knows much about. If you have internet access, Google WikiLeaks and look up common purpose. At the time, when WikiLeaks filed, about just over 10 years ago, Common Purpose had 80,000 members in 36 cities across Europe. This is a big outfit. They infiltrate the police, the law, the NHS, nurses, health, you name it. They're in on it. What's the Jersey link? Well, one of the alleged members was the previous chief executive of the Law Society in UK, a lady called Janet Parasevka. You might recognise the name. She turned up in Jersey as the chair of our Appointments Commission, the people who put the board members on our arm's length organisations. Investigating later Charlie Parker's policy advisory team, I came across the fact that one of them was also not only a member, but was an instructor for Common Purpose in South Africa. He was on the Policy Advisory Committee and are now, I think, on the Cabinet Office, direct advisors to the Council of Ministers. And will it come as any surprise to know that investigations into the offshore wind farm proposal have been sponsored, nearly to the tune of £1 million out of the Cabinet Office budget?
Thank you, Guy.
You know now.
Alan Brecken.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Can I ask you to fish this out of your paperwork? I'm going to refer to some facts and figures because there's some serious numbers in there of your money that's been spent. And the green highlight shows expenditure in 2022 of 218 million. The pink bit highlighted shows that in 2023 this increased to 257 million, and the yellow highlight shows this is over a 38 million pound increase when compared with 2022. The blue bit shows this equates to over 746,000 pound a week, or 106,000 pound a day. Note, this is only the year-on-year increase, not the total spend. This is your money. So on the back page, I've listed the ministers and assistant ministers in 2023 because this is ministerial government. Who is responsible? Who is accountable? And the answer appears to be nobody is. And to me, that's not acceptable. Take this home, have a good look, and you'll see what's been delivered by ministerial government, but we won't, as I said, get this money back. Against this spending background, I know speaking to people across the island, they are very, very concerned about medical treatment. The waiting list for appointments has gone up by nearly 500 in 2025. Some are paying, but they've already paid in 30 or 40 years or more. They shouldn't have to pay again. They should be first in the queue, not last. I believe we can save money, but also spend it on the right things, and that is why I'm standing here tonight, and that is what I want to do. Thank you.
Sam Mezek.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Thank you for coming out to this event. My name's Sam Mezek. I'm Jersey born and raised, and for the last 12 years I've served as a member of the States Assembly, as a deputy and a senator, as chief scrutineer, and for the last 2 years as the Minister for Housing. For this campaign, I've been going out and trying to meet as many voters as possible, knocking on doors in places that I haven't canvassed before, and I'm encountering a very common feeling among islanders, which is that Jersey is not meeting its potential. Many people recall generations in the past that experienced an island where if you worked hard, this would be a place of opportunity for you, where you could afford your home, afford to look after your family, and enjoy yourselves as well. But for the last 20 years, the stats tell us a different story. They show us that our economy has stagnated, real terms earnings have been frozen, and public spending has become completely unsustainable. I'm running for election because I believe the next government needs to turn the tide on this. I think the three priorities of that next government must be to address the cost of living, to prepare Jersey for the challenges we're facing in the future, and to restore accountability to government. I think in my time as a States member, I've shown myself to be an effective politician, a decisive minister, and a capable leader of a team that is united, and I believe my track record shows that. And when participating in government, I provide a perspective that brings balance to it and enables us to achieve good things. I'm extremely proud of the work I've done as housing minister, launching a new first-time buyer scheme, setting the groundwork for hundreds of new family-sized homes to be built, and I want to carry on that work and make sure it doesn't get disrupted. So if you want to see that government, a mix of talents in the Assembly that helps us turn the tide and make Jersey a place of hope and opportunity once again, on the 7th of June, I hope you'll consider voting for me. Thank you very much.
Helen Miles.
Thank you. Good evening, Trinity. I'm Helen Miles and I'm standing as an independent candidate. My background is in criminal justice. I have a PhD in criminology and I enjoyed a 30-year career working for Customs and Immigration, Probation and Aftercare and the States of Jersey Police. I was a founding member of Autism Jersey and I'm a former independent member of the Public Accounts Committee. Currently, I'm Deputy for St Brelard. I have served as Minister for Justice and Home Affairs, and I'm now Chair of the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel. And this has given me a very balanced experience of the states, of serving both in government and on scrutiny. As a Minister, I established the Violence Against Women and Girls Task Force and delivered the Building a Safer Community framework to support early intervention against crime. I introduced a 3-year work permit to help recruit hospitality staff and negotiated a scheme to increase the number of French day trippers to boost our tourism industry. On scrutiny, I led a review to make recommendations to strengthen our vital parish system. I cherish Jersey's identity, its history, its language and its traditions, which we must promote and keep alive. I'm standing for Senator so that I can use my experience to help address our many challenges. We need to support lower income families with the cost of living. We must control state spending and live within our means. And we need to ensure that young islanders have hope of an affordable future in Jersey. Trinity is currently experiencing the impact of underinvestment in our infrastructure, an all too familiar story across the island. We should invest and maintain as part of a preventative approach, and that applies equally to our physical and mental health, supporting vulnerable islanders, reducing crime, and combating antisocial behaviour. With a more prudent approach, we can be optimistic about our future. Thank you.
Bernard Place.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Bernard Place and I'm standing as an independent candidate for Senator because I believe Islanders are looking for practical and sensible answers to the pressures we face, especially the cost of living, housing and healthcare. After 40 years in public service, including many years as a registered nurse, I've worked from the front line to executive board level. I understand both the human impact of public services and just how difficult they are to run well. Jersey now needs to focus less on promises and more on making services work better. Healthcare is our largest public service and one of the biggest pressures on public finances. Islanders rightly want spending that supports doctors, nurses and frontline care, not unnecessary bureaucracy and duplication. Before asking islanders to pay more, we should first ask whether services can be delivered more effectively and more sensibly. That means better organised services and better value for the money islanders already contribute. This election is also an opportunity to widen the experience and perspectives in the States Assembly. Now, I respect those already serving, but there is value in adding practical public service experience to that Assembly. Many people who read my Jersey Evening Post articles describe my approach as sensible. Now, I'll take that. Sensible is good for Jersey. Because after 40 years in public service, I've learnt that the loudest answer is not always the best one. The best solutions are usually practical, mature, sensible. And that's the approach I hope to bring to the States Assembly as one of your 9 senators. Thank you.
Carl Bush.
Good evening, Trinity. I'm Carl Bush, standing for Senator and a fresh face, but by no means inexperienced. I come with experience in local government from the UK. I'm currently a social entrepreneur, and I brought my project Step 55 with me over here when I came to Jersey. Now, I made a big statement on the front page of the Jersey Post with my advert today, engaging 2,000 adults between now and the end of the next government term in weekly activity that would save the health budget up to 4 million per year. Now, that figure that I calculated was the lower estimate. I didn't put the higher estimate in because I didn't think anyone would believe me. Why is all that important? Well, it's very important because the health budget is burgeoning. The health budget at the moment for the next year is gauged at 381 million, and that's not including long-term care, which is approximately 80 to 96 million. So that's a huge amount of money out of the public expenditure. We can make a difference through our own health. So if we invest in ourselves and we attain the required amount of activity that an adult should do, which is 150 minutes a week, then we as individuals would knock off £800 per year off that health budget. So I want to finish by saying I bring experience from financial services and elected office in the UK, and I understand how to make careful decisions that deliver value. I believe sustainability and social enterprise must play a central role in Jersey's future, with fresh thinking that turns good ideas into real results. My priority is simple: healthier, happier, more active islanders and lower long-term pressure on healthcare costs.
Ian Gorst.
Good evening, I'm Ian Gorst, a rather warm independent candidate. I'm standing so that I can continue to be a strong voice for Jersey, defending our interests, promoting our economy, and building a sustainable future for our community. These are challenging times, and they call for experienced, calm, and serious leadership. People and businesses across the world are craving stability, and that is what Jersey must continue to offer. As Minister for External Relations, I have built strong relationships with Jersey's key political and economic partners. I've supported our financial services, agriculture, dairy, digital, and creative industries to grow and find new markets. We have a resilient economy, but we cannot be complacent. That is why I want to drive forward our competitiveness strategy so that we deliver economic growth and embrace innovation in the face of increased global competition. Investment in frontline public services is only possible with a strong economy supporting a diverse range of local jobs. In recent years, government has grown at an unsustainable rate. I have been, and I always will be, a voice for restraint to control public spending and ensure you keep more of your money in your pocket. Government should be an enabler, interfering less frequently in our lives and recognising that it doesn't always know best. Jersey has always adapted to changing times. With strong, effective, and proven leadership, I believe we can do so again. I ask for one of your votes on June the 7th. Thank you.
Mary Lahegara.
Good evening, everybody. Born and raised in Jersey in a farming family, my grandparents farmed at Chanclair Farm. I remember family gatherings with their 12 children and 32 grandchildren on New Year's Day until they retired. 25 years in policing, being promoted as the first female inspector in Jersey, has given me strong leadership, a background in team working in both public and private partnerships, delivering community initiatives. I've employed a collaborative approach in my political career in scrutiny and as a minister. Health and Social Security Scrutiny Panel Chair, we identified and delivered accommodation for those in mental health crisis at Orchard House, avoiding detention at the police station. As Minister for Justice and Home Affairs with a broad portfolio, I have led and supported staff delivering significant public safety laws in relation to sexual offending and fire safety. We need to increase our resilience and our food security. Having been involved in agricultural loans when I worked in the department, I was very pleased to support the proposition brought by Deputy Luce to reintroduce that scheme. We need to produce more and export less, which will reduce plastics, transport costs, improving our environment, keeping the money on Ireland as opposed to going overseas. Support and encourage on-island upskilling, continual development, using further and higher education is necessary, so we promote on-island talent, encouraging islanders to return following study. Let's not say no to someone who lacks experience, but say yes, and we will develop them further. Jersey's infrastructure suffered from long-standing underinvestment, and we need to pursue a value-for-money approach that protects taxpayers while keeping Jersey modern, competitive, and well-connected. I'm an accounting technician and have an LLB in law, and public safety and well-being are essential for our community to thrive.
Alan McLean.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jersey isn't working. Families are under pressure. Almost everything is costing more. And while you are forced, meanwhile, to tighten your belts, government is doing the opposite. Bigger, more expensive, more bureaucratic. Last year alone, government spent £118 million more than it earned. That's not sustainable. There is no magic money tree. There is only your money. I previously served as Economic Development Minister during the global financial crisis. We didn't just talk, we acted. We merged the ports and saved £1 million per annum. We created Digital Jersey and Jersey Business. We backed local enterprise. We improved connectivity by introducing EasyJet and re-establishing the Heathrow route. Then, as Treasury Minister, I tightly controlled state spending, delivering balanced budgets, expanded the student finance scheme so more could access university. We reformed the tax system so that large foreign-owned, non-finance businesses trading in Jersey paid 20% tax here on the profits generated here, rather than those profits shifting offshore. We now need clear business thinking and financial discipline again. We need to cut government waste and redesign service delivery for smarter, faster, cheaper public services. We need a government that is pro-growth, removes unnecessary red tape, speeds up decision-making. Otherwise, we will see more of our key businesses moving their operations to places like Guernsey. Yes, it's actually happening. A strong economy is not a luxury. It's what attracts investment, creates good jobs, and pays the bills. It gives the young people hope and a future. I'm not standing because I need a political career. I want to return to politics because I care deeply about this island. We need a Jersey that works for everyone, a more affordable Jersey. But it will only happen if we have the courage, discipline, and leadership to make difficult long-term decisions now. Thank you.
Alan Lepavu.
Good evening, my name's Alan Lepavu, and I'm standing because Jersey needs practical, community-focused leadership at a time when many islanders are under real pressure. Through my work with the Baudet Foundation, young people, families and community organisations, I've seen both the strength of our island and the strain many are under. Too many people are struggling with the cost of living, too many families feel locked out of housing, and too many young people are questioning whether their future is here at all. That's not sustainable, and it needs urgent, practical action. I'm not a career politician, and I'm not driven by ideology. I believe in listening, working collaboratively, and focusing on what works. I believe Jersey works best when three parts move together. A strong economy driven by commerce, a strong and effective focused government that produces policies and legislation that benefits our community, and a supported charity and community sector properly funded where it delivers essential services. You won't always agree with every decision I make, but it will be thoughtful, balanced and rooted in what's best for our community now and in the future. If elected, I will work hard, stay accessible, and focus on an outcomes-based accountability approach. Please feel free to Google that. I haven't got time to talk through it. I'd be grateful for your support, but above all, please use your vote for a better Jersey built together. Thank you.
Serena Kirsten-Guthrie.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Serena, and for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm best known as the ex-England netball captain and Commonwealth Games gold medalist. And I absolutely love my career. I was very grateful and fortunate to travel all over the world working with the best in the business. But I always knew that when I had to retire at some point, I always just wanted to come back to Jersey because it's a very special place. And I was struck to find how expensive it was when I moved back here and how close friends and family were frequently leaving. And so it's kind of got me thinking, is there a part I have to play here in public service for you, the taxpayer, the people of Jersey? And that's because there's one thing that I learned from my career in elite sport, and that is really, when a team is failing, it's not down to the failure of an individual, but the failure of a team to work effectively together. And that's what I feel Jersey feels like at the minute. It feels like a team that isn't working cohesively together. It feels like we're a team that's losing. We aren't helping enough people through the cost of living. We haven't got a grip on government spending. And our island isn't bringing in enough money. And the next government is under huge pressure to have to deliver results, try to spend less, and grow the economy. There are a few personal passions that I'd like to fight for if elected. I care deeply about the good that sport can do for our children, which is why I want to put PE teachers back into primary schools. And I care deeply about preventative health, so we can nip things in the bud, save money, and save lives. I've been asked quite frequently as a newcomer into politics during this election, what do I stand for? And I've been thinking about it, and really what I truly stand for is change, challenging the status quo, the processes, any form of culture that essentially slow things down. And I think that's what Jersey needs. And you are the people in charge of electing a new government to truly take responsibility, take accountability, and deliver results, because we need it more than ever. Thank you.
Mark Boliat.
Good evening. I'm standing for election because I want to give you, the people of Jersey, the government that you deserve. I've had a varied career, holding chief executive and chair positions in business, government, and charities in Jersey and in Britain. That does not mean I know all the answers, far from it. But I know how to ask the right questions, how to work collaboratively with others to tackle big issues, to take good decisions and to implement them, and to communicate them effectively. Jersey's got great businesses, fantastic charities, and wonderful communities, but it doesn't have a government to match. Decisions have been delayed. Bad decisions have been taken. Decisions that have been taken have not been implemented, and far too much time is spent talking around issues rather than actually dealing with them. My priority would be economic growth, because we need that to raise the tax revenue in order to provide the services and the way of life that the people of Jersey properly expect. This means we must maintain the competitiveness of our financial services industry. Like it or not, it provides 2/3 of our tax revenue. The planning system currently gets in the way of sensible development that would not adversely affect our environment. We need radical reform to help businesses grow. More generally, we're regulating too much. We're regulating like a big country, which we are not. Our regulatory system needs to be proportionate. Government expenditure has grown excessively. In the last 3 years, day-to-day spending has grown by 13% a year. That needs to be brought under control. And the government processes need to be more efficient. Some of them are simply antiquated. And finally, the education system. We must make our education system produce our young people fully equipped for a rapidly changing world of work. These are not easy tasks. It needs brave politicians, and I want to play my part to achieve them. Thank you.
Tom Binney.
Good evening, everyone. I've been in government now for almost 4 years. serving initially as Minister for Infrastructure, more recently as Minister for Health. I think I've worked hard in both jobs, especially the latter, and with the help of 3 very dedicated assistant ministers, I believe we've made real progress in putting the health service back on track. Whilst the current government's done a great deal to stabilise the island, I believe the next government will need to move much faster and be a lot more radical, because over time we've become bloated, slow to react, and lacking in any real long-term vision. So whoever manages to get through this electoral process will need to ensure that the government undergoes a complete culture change, focusing on efficiency and wealth creation, and everything should flow from that. We also need to implement the recommendation of the recent competitive review of the finance sector, providing all the resources that are necessary. We need to review all government functions, eliminate anything non-essential, and adjust the workforce accordingly, revitalise our town centre, strengthen our links with Europe, loosen our planning laws a great deal, involve businesses in developing our future, and create more quality sports facilities, especially for our young people. As controversial as it might be in these difficult times, I think we should find the courage to invest some of our financial reserves in creating a new future for the island. We have to be a lot more efficient and much more attractive in order to attract people to live, work, visit, and invest in the island. And I'm standing for a second term because I'd like to be directly involved in making that happen. Thank you.
Martin Aliga.
Hello, Trinity. How are you all today? I hope you've enjoyed this sunny day. I've had a good time today. I felt like I was back in Uganda. I must say that today I want to throw light on something that was discussed yesterday roughly. And it was a subject someone asked at Groville regarding the question of PFAS. Now, I did not know about PFAS until I put my name in this race, only to get phone calls and emails and things like that. What do I know about PFAS? And so I began reading, I began checking online, and I found out, I talked to some people as well, and I found that actually the government has been doing something about PFAS, and also there are groups of people that are doing something about PFAS, trying to argue out missed links. And so I wondered what's going on. So until yesterday, when I had this conversation going between the question and the government officials, especially the Minister of Environment and Health, saying the PFAS, which is actually a forever, it's a forever chemical, which is very difficult to eliminate, is under control. However, one thing I noticed is that there seems to be a missing link in the hearing, the active participation between government and those people that are saying, look, there are people who are actually affected. What can we do about them? And so I bring active listening. I think there is something missing between government listening to people who are saying, hey, look here, there's something missing here. But government is saying, those in government saying, oh, we're working. I would like a business done on top of the table, not under the table. And that will be by bringing everybody together and not dividing and trying to do things in silo. Thank you very much.
Lyndon Farnham.
Good evening. It's always difficult to follow Martin, but I shall do my best. My name is Lyndon Farnham. I was born in Jersey. I've lived here all my life. I raised my family here, and I'm standing for election because I, too, care deeply about the kind of future we are shaping for future generations. Since becoming Chief Minister in 2024, I have worked to restore stability across government, strengthen discipline in our public finances, and get government working together again. And we've made progress. We've halted the growth in the public sector. We have reduced the use of consultants and agency staff, saving £44 million over the last 2 years. We've enabled 153 islanders into home ownership through the newly established Step Up scheme. We are implementing all of the 76 recommendations of the Violence Against Women and Girls Task Force report. But there's a lot more to do. And my focus is clear for the next term: to ensure we live within our means and prioritise spending on the things that matter most and are most important to Jersey. That means investing in schools and healthcare facilities, improving our roads, extending mains, water and drainage, and investing in community spaces, sport and leisure facilities, and the wider public realm. It's for a Jersey where young islanders can realistically aspire to own a home, raise their families and stay in Jersey because they are confident about our future. A Jersey where older islanders feel secure, supported, and able to live independently with affordable care when it is needed. A Jersey where businesses can grow and compete without being weighed down by unnecessary costs and bureaucracy. And I'm optimistic about Jersey's future because we are a resilient island with enormous strengths, a strong community of hard-working people, a successful local economy, a clean and safe environment. But in these challenging times, Jersey needs leadership that is steady, experienced, forward-looking, honest about the challenges, takes responsibility, and gets things done. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
And Elaine Miller.
Good evening, everyone, and it is really lovely to be here in God's own parish at last. I've had the privilege of representing Trinity as a deputy since 2022, and I've lived in the parish for 25 years. Before being elected, I was a Jersey advocate and the first woman to hold the office of Viscount. Since then, I've been Treasury Minister and Minister for Social Security. I try to find effective solutions to problems and to make sensible, thoughtful decisions. I can get things done, and I've worked hard to deliver results. I brought the proposition that reinstated the role of senator. I reduced the cost of GP visits by £20. I addressed cost of living issues by increasing pensioner and other benefits. And I've supported the important work to ensure our financial services industry remains competitive. The cost of living remains a challenge, particularly for young families, and I'd like to find better ways of supporting children. Alongside financial services, we must enable all businesses to thrive and grow our economy, and small businesses underpin our quality of life. I'll aim to simplify regulation and promote growth by removing some of the barriers to business. And of course, we have some very significant businesses in Trinity. I will continue working to control government spending and remove inefficiency. This will help us put more money in reserves to ensure resilience in the future. I promote a population strategy that plans for the needs of young and old into the future, including education, careers, health and housing, particularly for older people. We have to focus on finding solutions that work for Jersey. I will continue working hard to deliver effective results that benefit our community and our economy. I will always put the interests of Jersey first. I am truly grateful to all of you who voted for me as a deputy, and I hope that you will vote for me as one of your senators. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all of the candidates. But it's now time to take questions. We're going to take two at a time, and they're going to have 90 seconds to answer both of those questions. A microphone is going to be passed around. Thank you very much to Caroline, who's volunteered to do that this evening. And we have been asked by the candidates to ask to prioritise parishioners in Trinity here this evening. So we'd like to do that, and we're not going to be taking any questions from candidates nor any current elected members. We do ask that questions are brief, please. We are short on time, so please don't make long statements. Please do ask some very quick questions, and I may need to ask you to get to the point and shorten your question if it is going on. I hope it goes without saying, but we do ask that there are no offensive questions this evening, and if that does happen, then you may be asked to stop talking or potentially leave the room. One last thing, your questions must be able to be answered by each of the 17 candidates. So please don't aim your question at just one or a few of them. So a reminder to say your name, please, and your parish when you take the microphone. Hold it nice and close so we can hear you, because if you hold it down here, then we won't be able to hear a thing. So that would be great. I'm going to stand up so I can see you all, because I feel rather short down here. So show of hands, who would like to start? We have the lady in the blue who shot her hand up very quickly there. So if we could get one to her, please. Thank you very much. We'll take that question first. So if you could tell us your name and where you live. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Faye. I live in Trinity. My question is, I get very concerned when we've got weather changes and with the war that's going on, we don't have anywhere to store food in Jersey. And I think we should have a warehouse so that we can, have tin food, if nothing else, and pasta. We are going, when the boats don't run, after 2 days, there's nothing on the shelves. There's over 23 government properties that are empty, and some have been empty for a long time. Why can't they be used as warehouses for food? You don't charge the supermarkets for the rent, but they look after them. So that's my question. We need a food warehouse.
Thank you very much. And one more question from this side, maybe it'll be easier to get round, and then we'll go over here. There's the gentleman on the end with his hand up. Thank you. If you could tell us your name and where you live, first of all, thank you.
Good evening.
You're good, just hold it nice and close.
Good evening, I'm a Trinity resident. My name's Desmond Hinno. I'm fed up of seeing states' property going to waste. Nothing's ever done on states' properties. When are we going to start looking after things? Also, our ferry service, it's diabolical. Absolutely diabolical. I'll leave that with a question for the candidates.
So your question is, what are we doing with the properties, with states' properties? That's the main one.
I think they should be repaired.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much for your questions. Okay, we're going to start. Elaine, if you've got the microphone at your end, we're going to start with you. Thank you.
Well, thank you for some very interesting questions. Yes, I do understand that people are concerned about things like food storage. I think it is probably best run by the supermarkets and people who are actually knowledgeable about food import and export. I think the fact that a government building may exist doesn't necessarily mean it's suitable for food storage for all sorts of reasons. I think it is something we need to think about in terms of long-term resilience and in terms of continuing connectivity about the ferries. The ferries haven't got off to a good start, but I am confident they're a good company, and I am sure they will settle down and we will start seeing a better service from them. But yes, we do need to think about food, and everybody needs to think about having an extra bag of pasta or beans in the cupboard. I'm not sure if that's something that government can really start hoarding. Warehousing food is something that would have to be thought about very carefully. Desmond, you're right, states property, sometimes it has not been maintained as well as it have done. We've recognised that. And the Investing in Jersey programme, which was launched last year, and the Capital Investment Fund, which the states agreed legislation to establish that very recently, will help prioritise capital to maintain and develop our buildings and make sure that they are kept in a good state. It is something that's not been done well, but it is definitely something that we have our eye on going forward. And I absolutely agree, we need to make sure that government buildings are maintained or disposed of appropriately. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the questions. In relation to the storage of food, I agree with the fact that we need more storage here. We do have good contingency plans for emergency situations, working with all the retailers and the distributors. But it, of course, society has moved to a much faster situation, should I say. If you go into a supermarket now, probably 40 to 50% of product is not ambient, it's frozen or chilled, and of course that runs on a just-in-time system. But I would be pleased to work with the retailers and the distributors to provide more on-island service, of course, but that means when there are dates and shelf life, that needs very careful control and management, and it's likely to be very expensive if we get it wrong. I think we have, on average, about a week's supply of food on island. Elaine mentioned the Investing in Jersey programme. We put that in place with a fund because departments were able to dip into their capital budget if it was underspend, to spend that on the running costs of the department, and we've stopped that because that was unacceptable. So we've now got a lot more money for capital investment. That's ring-fenced, so we will see significant improvements, not just in our own properties, but in the island's infrastructure, most importantly, the roads. And I do apologise, that's why a lot of roads are being dug up at the moment, because we're catching up on what we've underinvested on in the past. Thank you.
When you talk about food warehouses and food storage, Faye, I come with some little traditional knowledge from Uganda. I think on a macro level or micro level, the small family home status, we also need to create that. Here I find that we depend so much on freezing food. But I think that there are also cellar underground route approaches that we can use. Maybe government needs to invest in that and pass this knowledge to the community. Instead of us also expecting the government to put in place and support for big entities like supermarkets, I think we need to bring this back down to our families as well, where we don't only depend on electricity to be the way to preserve food. We could actually use underground ways of storage. So I don't know any place here in Jersey that does that, but I've seen in Finland people do that. They have underground cellar way of preserving food that can last up to 7 months of the year. The second question seemed to be tied to the first one as well, but I would say the properties can be utilized in, for example, creating activities centers for young people, because right now there's so many questions about what do we do with the young people extra activities. That's how I would suggest for that. Thank you.
With regard to food storage, it's a lot more complicated and a lot more expensive than you might think. For a start, which supermarket's going to do it? Well, each one of them have to do it. And it's not just about having the storage space. You've got to manage sell-by dates, stock management, and you've got to have constant rotation. And it could be done. It's going to add a lot to your to the cost of your food, and I don't think that's very sensible at this particular time. I did a little bit of work on this when I was looking at some resilience work for the island, and we came to the conclusion that really the most effective way and the cheapest way of doing it is for each home to look after its own interests. And actually, to that extent, I started doing the same thing myself, building up a small stock of dried pasta and tinned foods, because you never know what's going to happen. But I think that's much better handled as an individual thing than asking the state to do it, because it becomes really messy. States' properties, I wasn't in infrastructure. We've underinvested for a very long time. It's going to take quite some time. There is work going on, started by our Chief Minister, to address that and have a rationalisation programme. We're particularly doing that in health with a long-term new hospital facilities programs over 3 sites. And we're going to hopefully shut down about 20 or 30 smaller sites that are serving health services as well as the main sites itself. Okay, thank you.
Tom, I'm really annoyed you've given my answer. I'm round to your place when there's a crisis. There's a pasta party at Tom's. But this, we've all talked about public expenditure to do what needs to be done. Either is public expenditure for reconverting a government building and buying tins of baked beans, all of which will cost you money. Alternatively, the supermarkets are going to have that cost put on them, and that will cost you money. So if people think it's worthwhile, I'll agree with Tom. Put in your own baked beans. And you don't bother about sell-by dates, at least I don't. Just looked at my butter tonight. That was a bit worrying. So this should be up to each individual. On buildings, I'm appalled at what's happened in Jersey. I'm going to cite 2 buildings. La Folie. I was asked to look at that 10 years ago when I chaired JDC. I predicted it would still be derelict in 10 years' time. Wasn't I right? The other one is St Saviour's Hospital. We have a planning brief that says it has to be a heritage project. It won't be, because no one will pay for it. So it's derelict. That is appalling. And of course, we need to maintain our properties. On ferries, we've signed a long-term contract. We have to make the best of it, and hopefully, quietly, we can work with Guernsey to improve the situation. Thank you.
Hi, Faye. Yeah, it is a huge concern. I think I certainly share your frustrations trying to go to the supermarket to buy something and not being able to find anything. For me, I'd actually just quite like to focus on actually the opportunity that exists to potentially try to diversify some of our agriculture over here. And I was in a brilliant briefing with the Farmers Union up here actually a couple of days ago, and there's some incredibly good work going on that could provide some incredible solutions to some of the issues that not only you're facing, but I think we're all facing. So I'd like to see government pushing more incentives for that to happen. We've got some incredible farmers over here who want to help. We need to allow them to do that more effectively. DFDS, I mean, it is frustrating. I totally share your views. Look, they are contractually bound to deliver, and we have to keep putting the pressure on them to perform better and to deliver, because we are, we're in bed with them now, and we have to make that relationship work. We can't continue to complain. We have to be really solutions focused in this space, or I think the relationship will deteriorate. Yes, properties. I think the government own too many. I quite like us to release some of the surplus property and use that to either put it back into maybe strategic reserve, or let's revamp some of more properties for communities, sports, and give the taxpayers back some of their money in different ways.
Well, I do understand that most of the supermarkets, as far as dry and canned goods are concerned, they do have a reasonable supply. It is the fresh and chilled goods that we see missing most of the time, and I'm afraid that's just the way it is. We live too far away from our supply chains. And one way we could reduce that is if we changed our supply chains and we work better with our European neighbours for fresh fruit and veg. And I also agree with Serena, and we should be empowering our farmers. I was up here as well. I had some really great conversations, and they're passionate about producing food for us, and we should be enabling that. Property. We do have a lot of property. There's an opportunity to use this property in a meantime kind of way. I had a conversation at the candidates fair with 5 young men who would desperately would like to have somewhere to hang out. All they want to do is play pool and darts. And I really feel that some of these properties we've got sitting around may well lend themselves to doing that kind of activity, so we can engage with the youth and give them something more purposeful to do. The ferry, yeah, we're stuck with that one, I'm afraid. We can blame Guernsey for that mostly. I have friends in Guernsey, and they were not surprised at all when the Guernsey government did what they did, and they were quite surprised we weren't ready for it. Thank you.
Faye, thank you for your question. There's an Emergencies Council, and I think that certainly that should be on the agenda for the Emergencies Council with regard to resilience and food. In truth, it's a combination between the public and government to make sure, from a government point of view, that the public are properly alerted and advised about requirements and needs should there be escalating wars, disruption to ferry services and such like. So there are opportunities. There used to be bottled water stored in the tunnels actually some years ago. That's now, I believe, stopped. But I do believe there's more communication required from government, and it's a matter for the Emergencies Council to consider. On the supermarket side, the reason that they don't keep the storage on island anymore is cost, as colleagues have already said along the way. It's just too expensive, and the price will be passed on to the public. Desmond, your question about infrastructure and the state of the public domain, it's poor, and it's largely because budgets it's very easy to push back on your capital budget, not so easy to do it otherwise. And so that's what States departments do. They put it back, and we need to have a proper budgeting process where you have, first of all, living within your means. You allocate capital properly to look after the infrastructure, and you allocate to reserves, as the Fiscal Policy Panel have told us to do. On the ferry side, Guernsey, it had to be a contract, worked with Guernsey. I negotiated together with officers the Condor contract. We didn't give them more than 10 years. We had break clauses. With DFDS, I think they'll be good, but it's a bad contract.
In relation to using some of the empty buildings, those would obviously have problems in relation to their locations and whether planning laws would actually allow them to be used as warehouses alongside what everyone else has said. My mantra, and I think people are going to get pretty bored of this, is the fact that I do think that we should be doing more in relation to our food security. And I've mentioned this at every single one of these hustings, because I think we do have to look at our resilience, because it does concern me. I also know that there are countries in Europe, and I think Denmark is one of them, that is working really hard on this. And I think as an island, we're never going to be self-sufficient, but I do think we should be doing more in relation to that. In relation to states' properties, again, I think that we've underinvested in our states' properties for more years than most of us can remember, because they've been falling down from the Fort to La Folly, etc. From my perspective, we need to decide which properties we do and don't want, and get rid of those that we don't have a purpose for.
Thank you. The Economy Department do actually liaise very frequently with supermarkets. They did it through Brexit and they did it through COVID. So for dried goods, supermarkets actually have over time increased their storage to something like, I think it's about 6 weeks, but I haven't got the figures in front of me. So they do that better, but Tom is right. The other answer is better communication with government, so that we each as individual households can think about our own stock cupboard, our own pantries, just like our grandparents used to do. It's getting back to being sensible in the home. There is a problem, however, of course, with fresh produce and ambient produce, and that's because we're at the end of quite a long supply line. That again requires us to think differently, which Jersey farmers are already doing, about how can they meet some of that need and how can they provide on island. But it does require us to not always go to the supermarket to get our fresh food, but to go to the honesty boxes on the hedges and go to our farmers to buy from them. States properties, I absolutely agree. The new fund will put not just money to buy and sell new properties, importantly to sell them, but it will also put money into that fund to keep them in good repair and keep them in use. It's a total rethink about how we deal with properties. If we're not using them, sell them. If we want to keep them, put the money aside to keep them repaired. Thank you.
Yes, Faye, I was thinking the very same thought not long ago, actually. I'd run out of pasta and I went to my COVID store and I got a 4-year-old packet of pasta out, and do I, don't I? I decided not to go with it in the end. So the answer, well, I ask, is there no policy on no food? Doesn't seem there is. I think definitely there should be. I'm a social entrepreneur, and I think that we can turn social enterprise to tackle a lot of the questions that we have that face us on the island. Social entrepreneurs are creative. They don't need an awful lot of money to grow their ideas. If government provide the structure and the support, social enterprise could work with farmers to make the most of the land that we've got to produce what we can grow quickly and what we can farm quickly. And so my answer would be to put it out to the community to look for the answers quickly. With respect to the ferries, we had this question at one of the other hustings. The contract obviously was dealt with shipping experts. They know what they're doing. Sorry, I'll just leave it there.
Thank you. So this is a good illustration of having somebody with practical experience in the senatorial team. I manage the COVID PPE stock for the whole island, for the whole of government, much of the private sector, and all of the care sector. And this is an issue about risk management and risk assessment. And if the risk assessed is so great, then it's finding a different balance between centralised stock holding and distributed stock holding. And what we did throughout COVID is manage that balance. We kept a central stock worth about £8 million, and we distributed stock so that people had 3 or 4 days stock locally. And so it would be the same with if the risk was high enough, With food, you would do the same kind of process. If the risk was starvation, there'd be a central approach to this. If the risk was less convenience, that's better managed in a distributed way. So in terms of properties, use them or sell them. Unless they have a strategic need or an impending operational need, there's no requirement for the government to hold those properties. So strategic or operational need, keep them. If they don't, sell them.
Thank you. It's very difficult when you get to the end of the table to say anything new, but I will try to add to what has already been said, much of which I agree. I think over time we've kind of lost that occupation mentality of waste not, want not, and I do think there is an individual responsibility on households to make sure that they have got supplies of dried food. I agree with everything that's been said about Grow Local. I think we probably need another Buy Local campaign like the ones that we've had in the past. In my manifesto, I talk about introducing new legislation on resilience and emergency planning. I think that's just to firm up the arrangements. I think we do have good contingency plans in place, and that's been shown with some of the recent disasters that we've had. I think there is a planning issue. Certainly the Bridging Island plan does prevent some types of structures being handed over to warehousing, and that has been a problem for some of the shops. When it comes to the ferries, Desmond, I think we have to be careful what we wish for. We certainly haven't got ferry companies queuing up to deliver an inter-island or a France-England service. So what we need to do is work with the contract we've got and improve our relationships with DFDS and Guernsey in particular. When it comes to the state's properties, La Folie, Fort Regent, Opera House, the issue that concerns me is accountability. Who's ever been held accountable? It seems to go from government to government. Thank you.
Thank you, Faye. Your question reminded me of around about 10 years ago when the Co-op was looking to close its on-island warehouse. And Jeff Southern and I got some cheap leaflets made, and those were to urge shareholders to oppose that, and we got very kindly escorted off the premises at the Grand Marché for distributing them. That was our act of rebellion then. But obviously government should be in close communication with all of those supermarkets, and if there's a demand for space where they can improve their storage and government can have a role in doing that, then obviously that's something we should be open to. But I also completely agree that there has to be a greater drive to support the industry and islanders getting better access to local produce too. We were in this room yesterday speaking to representatives from the Farmers Union who are very keen to see that. GST off of locally produced food, just one idea that could be thrown into the mix on that. Desmond on states, and I think he's just walking out the room, that's slightly embarrassing. It's just about to get good. So obviously the management of states properties has been appalling, and there are monuments to this all across the island, Fort Regent, La Folie, you name it. The issue is political prevarication, where we identify a site, somebody comes up with a perfectly good idea for it, and the politics stops us from doing it because we need to have 20 reviews on it, a consultation, and then bring in an expert from England to tell us what to do. We need politicians who actually will just get on with it and not waste time and money like that, but that's down to you to elect politicians with that mindset.
Thank you. Warehouses for storing food, they actually were there. The Rish had a big store in Pladua Road. It's now been flattened. It's going to be a care home and housing. The Co-op had a big store behind the Goose on the Green. That's flattened. It's 3 blocks of flats. It's a case of what property is worth, and the company's cashing in on it and moving to a method of just-in-time, which brings produce in. But of course that causes problems if the ferries are delayed, because then the chilled stuff goes missing from the shelves, and we all notice that. Regarding the 23 government properties and the use, that is linked to the second question, and others have mentioned, I mean, the Folly pub is actually diabolical, to use the word that the questioner asked. So the property portfolio needs a proper review, what's in states ownership, what's needed, what for, and I believe to make the best use of it or sell it. Thank you.
Tom Binet gave some very good advice on food, but I want to point out it's not just about storage, it's also about logistics. And warehouses in southern England are an awful lot cheaper than they would be here. And don't forget, you've got to get all the food down to somewhere near the port, and then we can only shift it by the boatload. So there's a huge logistical issue that is not solved by having storage locally. Store stuff yourself if you're really worried about loo paper or beans or pasta. Ferries, well, the short answer to this, what do you think? It's Guernsey's fault. Guernsey lent Condor/Brittany Ferries 26 million quid, and they want their money back. So that deal was either going to go with what Guernsey want or do something different. Well, it didn't work out precisely as we hoped, but there we go. As for property going to waste, well, that's basically chief officers cheating on maintenance. But I would like to say I've sorted that out partially. I did the Jersey Heritage Holiday Lets, saving bunkers, towers, forts that you can now go and stay in with your friends.
Des, DFDS have had a tricky start. It's been challenging for them, and I'm really confident that they're going to get their act together. They got proper boats running now, and that comes into phase question in a minute. But just back on property, it is difficult. The state's planned for many years to spend £120 million a year on property, and for year after year only managed to spend £80 million of that. It's incredible to actually hear that, but that's what happened. And yes, La Folie and St Saviour's need to be sorted out, but I would just remind Des that the facility that was Lequinaway School now is a really, really good facility. The Opera House was in bad need. It's now a fantastic facility for the arts and culture. We can and do things well, but we need to do that more often. Faye, your question about food. Can I start by assuring you that in an emergency we will never run out of food? When we did Brexit, I was involved in the contingency planning for that. We dusted that off for COVID. If things had got difficult, we would have got food onto this island. There are ways and means to do it. Having said that, when we get to frozen and chilled produce, that needs to come in on the boats. Those boats need to run regularly, and they will do better. Finally, can I say I'm flattered that so many people have followed my lead. I've been saying about farmers growing more food for local consumption all the way through this campaign. I would finish by just saying the farmers are getting their act together. We're starting farmers markets in Jersey. They will start at the RJ here in a couple of weeks' time.
Thank you very much. That's all the candidates who've answered the first questions. I'm now going to go to this side of the room. There's the gentleman in the blue, and then I'll take the gentleman with the red notepad in the air. Yes, that's you.
Hi, this one's not a short one.
If you could just tell us your name and where you're from.
Sebastian, I'm from Trinity.
Thank you.
I'm a millennial, and sadly I've seen Jersey degrade in the last 10 years at least. We've seen Jersey's record of the hospital fail, 12 years for basic alcohol law upgrading due to political infighting, and the Fort Region underinvestment. Yet Jersey has the potential. Jersey has the potential for a new wind turbine. The two recent reports show, one, the economic benefit, and two, the majority of the islanders who are under 60 want it to go forward. But the problem is, I fear this golden egg is going to become a fried egg, a short-term sugar rush, instead of providing us with a permanent generational wealth golden hen.
So can you tell us your question? Just
so my question is,
thank you.
If you look at Norway in 1996, they locked away all of their marine energy reserves away when they got the oil to guarantee that 100% of the income went into a sovereign wealth fund, and only spent 3% of that return on that sovereign wealth fund each year to invest in their community. Do you not agree we need to have a sovereign wealth fund should any energy come from the island sea to protect long-term generational wealth, and that should be separate from the rainy day wealth fund, and that sadly has been used to fund the current new hospital.
Thank
If you
you,
do not
Sebastian.
agree with
We'll
this,
need to leave it there.
sorry, if you do not agree, what alternative framework do you propose to legally protect this windfall?
Thank you for the question. Thank you. Is everyone clear? You're fine. Okay. Thank you. The gentleman, there we go. Thank you very much.
I've got a little confession to make, Chair. I live on the St Martin's Trinity border. I was unable to go to the St Martin's Hustings. I went to Trinity Primary School.
I'm really sorry because of the rules. I have to take
Okay,
questions from Trinity parishioners
Fair
first. That is the rule. If there are no questions from Trinity parishioners, then I will then come to you, sir. But I have some hands in the air from Trinity. But I will come back to you, I promise. Thank you for your understanding. Thank you. The gentleman at the back. Okay, well, can I go to the Trinity parishioners?
Just quickly, I object because this is not to do with, this is not a deputies meeting for a local people. It is for an island-wide meeting.
I understand that it's an
everyone.
island-wide.
I missed out my one because I wasn't here. So
Apologies.
I've missed. So do I walk out now, or do I have a say?
No, not at all. If you would like to speak to the candidates afterwards, please do that. If I have no more questions from Trinity, then I will come to you, sir. Okay, I understand, and I'm really sorry. Those are the rules that have been set for this meeting, for this hustings, but thank you. I'll take the lady who's got the glasses here. Thank you.
Hello. I'm delighted to see there's some young children, or young people, sorry, I shouldn't call you children, in the audience.
Can you just tell us your name and where you live?
Michelle from Trinity.
Thank you, Michelle.
How will you ensure the children and young people are treated as a genuine priority in policy and spending decisions? And what specific priority would you like to action for our children over the next 4 years to make a difference to their lives?
Thank you, Michelle. And we're going to start with Mary. Thank you for the questions.
Okay, starting with the first one, and I think I understand it because it was quite long. I'm aware of what happened in Norway, that they actually, when they started to produce oil, they kept the money aside, and that's why now they've got more greener energy, etc., etc. Obviously, we're not in a position to actually start with a wind farm yet because we weren't able to, or we haven't been able to get a contract with anybody that was able to take the electricity from that, either to selling it to either France or to the UK. So I think the thing is until we're in the position where we've actually got that up and running, then we can't say that what we would do with the money. But if my view would be that if you do actually find money, and obviously there will be employment with this sort of thing as well, then you should actually probably look to put that money for the future of the next generations. In relation to young people, to ensure we're doing the right actions, I think within the States Assembly, all legislation and all propositions are all looked at in relation to young people, and they are and should be considered with all of that legislation. There's a lot to be done in relation to children going into school and early years, because I think we haven't.
Right, thank you. The Sovereign Wealth Fund idea is actually something that's included in my manifesto, so there's some information there about my feeling about a Sovereign Wealth Fund, and I do treat it and believe it should be something separate to the Strategic Reserve, or what's known as the Rainy Day Fund. I think there's an opportunity. I think you're particularly referring to the fact that funds that might come from future energy, wind and so forth, should be put into that, similar to the Norway model. We've also got other potential windfalls, such as Pillar 2, the receipts that should come from that very shortly. They're in the budget estimated at 50 million. We suspect they could be quite a bit higher than that. And again, whatever happens, those funds must go into reserves and not be spent. And that's the biggest concern I think we should all have. So Sovereign Wealth Fund, I think, is a good idea. And I think we need to find suitable funds to put into it. With regard to young people, I think it was Jan, I didn't quite catch your name, but apologies, I've got that wrong. We should do more with regard to further education, apprenticeships. I think there's a lot of investment that can go in there to give more on-island opportunities. I also believe higher education. Obviously, I was involved in increasing the funding for university grants, but we need to provide more opportunities on island for young people and better entertainment. There's got to be more things to do for the young, and I think entertainment facilities and bringing perhaps international students in from off island to create a cohort would make it much more lively and interesting.
Sebastian, that's a new one on me. Thank you for educating me. If we can have a golden egg, I would love to see us investing it and utilising that. It strikes me, though, that we might be able to leverage some income from some of our arm's length organisations in the form of dividends from the JEC, Jersey Telecoms, things like that, which we might also be able to put into that. As for children, that's my area. Thank you, Michelle. So, first of all, I want to do a complete review of the SENS provision in the island. I'd like to see, because we've got some really good examples of things happening in early years, right the way through to adulthood, but it's not adulthood, but it's not joined up. Some of that's delivered by charity and community organisations. Some of this was done with private nurseries and Jersey Childcare Trust, and there's some really good stuff in education, but it doesn't seem to follow through. So that would be my first thing. I'd like us to increase nursery provision. I feel very strongly that we should have a gender balance in nurseries. I was the first male to qualify as a nursery nurse back in the 80s. I was the third in Britain. And since then, it's not really changed. It's still considered as women's work. We need to change that so we have good role models in early years so we can develop sensible young men as they grow up and reduce this misogynistic attitude that seems to be floating around at the moment. I mentioned about meantime things. I think we need to do more for young people in small cohorts so they can just... Thank you.
Hi, Sebastian. So, yeah, to answer your question, if wind farm has a strong business case, I would support it. I think energy resilience is something we've got to keep our eye on, right, with climate change. And if there is a strong business case, I think we need to be data-driven but fiscally responsible because it is a high upfront cost. And there are a lot of challenges going on in health and education at the minute as well. So we have to be responsible about when we invest, what it looks like, and what the outcomes of that investment are actually going to be. Michelle, yes, so sport, well, children, let's talk about that. Okay, specific priority. I want to unlock the schools. I don't understand why we cannot work with an education minister to unlock the schools of a weekend and provide free access for our kids to come in and have a knockabout, hang out, and do it in a sensible way. I just think that would be a quick, easy win to give our young children and people a place to be able to go and access sport, because at the minute, too many kids pay to exist on this island. I don't agree with it. There should be more free access to sports facilities on this island. I want to put PE teachers back in schools. Physical literacy, there is research proven if you invest, I'm a big believer in beginnings and endings and investment. We have to invest in the first 10 years from a physical literacy perspective. It enables our children to be mentally resilient, physically resilient in a world where we're not quite sure what it looks like in the next 50 years. And more locally led solutions using the parish halls. Infrastructure is there where we can provide sports, activities, arts and culture, and free upskilling for our children. There you go. Thank you.
The wind farm is simply whether it's a good economic investment for Jersey. It's certainly worth spending $5 million if we're going to get 30 million out of it. That's the question. And if the economics of it don't work, then we don't do it. A sovereign wealth fund does require money to be put into it. And that means money that's not being used for other things. As the government's been running at a deficit for the last few years, we can only build up a sovereign wealth fund by taxing more or by spending less. So I wouldn't regard the wind farm as producing a windfall. If it works, and the money goes in the pot like everything else. I'm passionate about education, and I think Jersey performs poorly. only 64% of children starting reception classes are at the expected stage of development. Our exam results are on a par with England. Frankly, that's not good enough for Jersey. I suggest some of you might like to read the recent review of SEND. It presents an appalling picture that Jersey's had one report on inclusive education with a lot of recommendations that were largely ignored. We've had another report saying the situation is very serious. Let's do something about it. We've got serious problems there. We can hugely improve the quality of what we do in early years, and we must tackle the SEND crisis. We've got the evidence. We need to get on with dealing with it.
Yeah, I always like to try and answer questions as accurately as I can. And from what I can make of the question, it is, would we set up a sovereign wealth fund to invest all of the money we're going to make from wind power, and how would we protect that windfall? Sadly, I don't think we're going to have a windfall from a wind farm because we don't have a customer. I happen to be in possession of a letter from the French government from 2 years ago, and in 3 places it stated that there would be wind farms in the English Channel in French territorial waters. They wished us well with our endeavours and just warned us that if we did it, we wouldn't have to mess up their fishing because they'd come after us. Despite that, we spent £1 million developing a project, only to find at the end that we didn't have a customer. I come from a background where if you don't have a customer, you don't invest. It's basic common sense. So I hope that's answered that question. If there was one thing I would do as a priority for children, I think we're raising a generation of screen addicts. And I would, as I mentioned in my speech, I'd invest a lot of money in sports facilities to get kids away from that and into doing something disciplined and useful. Thank you.
Sebastian, I want to apologize because I will go with the experienced answer from Tom about your question. As far as priorities for children, that's after my heart. I want to agree with some of the answers have been given. I want to add on to that. Have you noticed that we emphasize so much about rights of our children? Do you see any problem with it or not? I think I see a problem with it. And I would like to highlight the fact that we cannot teach our children too much rights of their rights and forget responsibilities. I want to go in the state's government to say parents should be empowered to support their children to know what they are growing up to be, not just empowering them with rights that come from schools, and the schools teachers are struggling to actually support this young person who stands up to them, not knowing that they actually have a duty of respect to the teacher, as the teacher has to train them to grow up to be responsible young people of the island. Now, I have an issue with that because we are paying a blind eye in the names of children's rights and forgetting a child must grow up responsible if they have to take care of us when we are older. Thank you very much for listening. I hope we take this seriously. Invest your vote in me. I have plans, more plans for that. Thank you.
Yeah, we need to put more money into our reserves, full stop. Our reserves have grown significantly over the last 3 years, despite some of the rhetoric that's flying around, but we need to continue on that pathway. Tom said it all. I'm a big supporter of renewable energy, but with the wind farms, neither the French government or the British government, after significant talks over a long period of time, could give us that commitment. Now, when everybody has wind, now better say that every country has access to wind, we have access to tidal. We can predict our tides to the inch and the minute every day. If tidal technology was more advanced, that's where we need to be going. Children, I think, need to be encouraged to get out and do more sport. We need to discourage screen time. We are investing in youth facilities and leisure facilities and sporting facilities. But if I can go back to my opening remarks, and I know a bit about children, I used to be one a long time ago, the big concern is that these young people, we want to keep them here. We want to get them into good jobs. And as I said in my opening remarks, we want a Jersey where young islanders can, excuse me, realistically aspire to own a home, afford to live here, raise their families here, and stay here because they have confidence in our future. Thank you.
Thank you. Offshore wind is not, everybody is not supportive of it, and that is part of the problem. There are some real opponents to it. If it does come, I'm in two minds. If it can be built and it can be supportive, then we need to think very carefully what we do with the money it generates. I don't think it will generate as much as Norwegian oil has generated. And we also have to remember that they may have developed a large sovereign wealth fund, but they are still paying very high taxes. So we do need to address, we still need to be able to use the money we have to provide good quality services and invest. So I agree with you, we need to put money to one side. We have numerous funds that are invested very carefully at the moment through the Common Investment Fund, which is very professionally invested. Children's not my area of particular expertise, but I was absolutely, the one thing I do believe is that education is absolutely critical, and I was quite horrified recently to discover that there are a very large number of children leaving our primary schools not fit for secondary education, not able to read properly. And if you're not able to read at the age of 11 or 12, there is something very far wrong with our system and that child's future chances. The ability to read and come out of primary school with the fundamental basic skills is more important than anything else, unless you're a brilliant soccer player or something, but the ability to read is fundamental to someone going through life successfully, and that is something we really need to address. Thank you.
I suppose the straightforward answer to your question is yes. If there are any windfalls, and we've heard about the difficulties of delivering a wind farm, the difficulties about the customer is that if we sell it to France, then they would want to regulate it. If we sell it to the UK, they would want to regulate it. And straight away you can see the constitutional difficulty that we would get into. But we should only do it if it's going to produce a return to Jersey, because realistically it can't give us energy security because it has to go to two of those markets because we're not a big enough market. So any money that we make should go into a sovereign wealth fund. The reality is the strategic reserve, we downsell it, we downplay it. It is a sovereign wealth fund now, but we just haven't been putting enough money into it because we've not been running surpluses, we've been running deficits. If we get back to running surpluses, we can put more money into it. Alan is right, the upside return on Pillar 2, which is only going to be temporary, should also be put into reserves and used to invest across the economy. But it's difficult, but that's what we're going to have to do in the future. Thinking about children, I think the reality that our young people face, and those of us with children see it day in and day out, is we've got to re-understand what it means to protect our children. And I'm talking there about protecting them from screen time and social media, because the effects it has upon them are untold. That should be our priority. Thank you.
Yes, well, in respect to the wind farms, it's not been that long that the French have actually built a wind farm that we can see from St. Juan's Bay, and it's a little bit strange to understand that if there's one within eyesight of us, why don't we build one? They've obviously got a market for their own wind from that wind farm. One that's just a few miles away from it can go to the same market. I think we have to build resilience, because if something drastic happens with our power supply, then we have to have these options, and that would be one of them. Now, I think I'm going to cover sustainability. I'm a big fan of sustainability, and wind obviously comes into that category. And I think that if we look at our younger generation, if we look at social enterprise and sustainability together, we can empower individuals with creative minds to do the best for themselves and for humanity. We can produce here on the island something that we could export to the world. I mean, we could create ideas and enhance them through government structure to do good and get social investment from big investors.
Thank you. Sovereign wealth funds come in two types. One where it's a total stock of money and gets the return through purely financial means. And the more common type of sovereign wealth fund, which they have in Norway, which is a mixture of a stock and a flow of money. And the flow of money is fairly modest in Norway, which is why they retain the massive sovereign wealth fund. They choose to invest some of that flow of money in wind farms and other alternative energy facilities. I think there are better opportunities to get social value out of investments if we do have such a social wealth fund. The second thing in terms of children, I think we should stop growing our children as an export crop, because what we want to do is keep them here. After spending all that money in educating them, bringing them up, we don't want to export them. We want them to stay on the island and contribute to the island, and there are several ways to do that. But the first thing is to create what I call landing ground accommodation for children who want to leave the family home but don't want to leave the island, and children who want to come back to the island but don't want to go to the bedroom and been brought up as a child in. And those landing ground opportunities can be made possible by working with housing providers. The second thing is, very quickly, we need if we're going to stop people using screens, we need to align the visitor economy with an economy of activities that meets the needs of islanders as well.
Thank you. When it comes to the Sovereign Wealth Fund, I tend to agree with Deputy Ian Gorst. I'm the chair of the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel, and we've paid great heed to the Fiscal Policy Panel, who say that the first thing that we need to do is rebuild our stabilisation fund and rebuild our reserves significantly. So I can't see a Sovereign Wealth Fund on the near horizon, but it certainly might be something for the longer term. When it comes to wind turbines, I'm really in two minds. If it's going to make us a lot of money, I would of course support that, but I don't think it is going to be there for energy security given our relationship with the French. Michelle, when it comes to children, following the independent Jersey care inquiry, the island of Jersey made a commitment to put children first, put children at the heart of everything that we do. I'm not sure over the last 10 years how successful we've been at doing that. We certainly have withdrawn money from our Children's Commissioner, who is the only rights agency on the island supporting children. We've had two very bad reports around special educational needs, something I know a lot about, having been a long-term trustee of Autism Jersey. We are hammering square pegs into round holes. We are underfunding our special needs education, and we are expecting feeder schools to support children with very complex needs whilst not funding specialist provision. There was an opportunity to extend Montalabé, and that wasn't taken. Thank you.
And thank you, Sebastian, for bringing up the Norway model, which is a really interesting one. And when you compare what they did with their oil compared to what Britain did, it's a night and day difference. They, through their sovereign wealth funds, have done things like introduced really high quality childcare, access to higher education and good public services, which all contribute to making it a prosperous society. It will cost you nearly £12 for a beer in Norway, so it's not a complete paradise, but there's still a lot that we can learn from for what they've done there. But we do have to bear in mind that the wind farm project is not a given, and the model that we go down with it as well is also not a given. And if we continue to do what government frequently does and prevaricate instead of getting on with things, then we can forget about it, because the only people who will benefit from that wealth will be the consultants rather than the public of Jersey. So we've got to be really careful on that. Michelle, I was the first Minister for Children in Jersey, and I helped lay the groundwork for the establishment of indirectly incorporating the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child into Jersey law, which created an obligation for public authorities to have due regard for children's rights in all that they do. And that over time will need to develop the culture around that. And the rights do come with responsibilities, and they do come with rights for parents as well. But that's something that the island is still on a journey on. But there's specific things we ought to be doing as well. We need to make the island a more fun place to be. That's why I support the Fort Regent project. We need to make sure young people have good education opportunities. That's why Highlands needs to meet its potential. And there's a lot more that we need to do on that.
Thank you. I can see real problems with wind turbines. Billions of pounds will be required, and nobody's queuing up to do it, either to build them or to use the electricity that they generate. I would be more practical and look at solar panels, and I'll give you an example. I'm a member of the Board of Management in Maison St. Ballard. We've got 82 solar panels on the roof, and we're selling electricity back to the JEC because of the weather, obviously. And a grant could come from the Climate Fund, and the JEC have got to spend over £100 million to reinforce their system. Where's the money going to come from? From you and me. But if you get solar panels, you'll save some money. I should declare that I have two grandsons who are 8 and 12, and like any parent or grandparent, you want them to achieve the best possible and enjoy life. But also, in general terms, I think we need to target more support to special education needs, invest in the young people now, and allow them to have a good and prosperous future. Thank you.
Young people first, of course, and I think that for young people the way forward is to get them to learn all about artificial intelligence. Otherwise, when they grow up, they won't get a job. That is what the AI marketing is telling us now. Now, may I remind everybody, and this is in round figures because I've had to translate from old school into modern currency, a cubic meter of water is roughly 1,000 kilos. Imagine several million cubic meters of water going up and down 25 or 30 feet. Yes, that's one of our special attributes. Jersey has one of the highest rises and falls of tide on the planet. So why don't we make use of this extraordinary natural resource that goes up and down twice a day, rain or shine, and it's non-stop. Totally, you can time it a year ahead. The offshore wind farm concept is a folly of the first order that JEC are avoiding funding. Government Jersey doesn't really want to know. It's all going to be handed over to private enterprise. Well, if you want to know how the privateers make money, they charge massive interest on their initial capital loan. And who will pick up the tab if it's successful? All the people who use electricity in this island. That's you lot and many others.
Ashton, thank you for asking about the wind farm. It's not about low carbon because our electricity is already low carbon. It's not about energy security because we've already got 3 cables, a 4th planned. It's about making money. It's about putting money into the economy. You've quite rightly said that. Unfortunately, the wind farm's 10 years away, so it will be a while before it gets here. I'm here to tell you it will get here. There's a lot of people that don't think, but it will get here. And the market that we will export that energy to is interested. I can't say more than that. The strategic reserve we have at the moment is a bit like a sovereign wealth fund, and we invest it and we get a good return or interest on that money. But maybe if we're really serious about getting the economy going in Jersey, we should look for alternative ways to invest in locally. The Farmers Agricultural Loan Scheme does that. The states lend money to farmers, they invest in their farms, they employ people, they reinvest in other businesses in the island, and the government gets the money back with interest. Is that a better scheme than a straight interest return on the strategic reserve? I don't know. Michelle, thank you for your question. I've got a very simple answer for you. I would ban social media for under 18s. I am terribly worried about the damage it's doing to our children, our grandchildren. We cannot believe a thing we see or hear on social media at the moment. It's destroying our children's perception of reality, and if we don't do something about it very soon, we're facing a bleak future.
Okay, that's all of the candidates who've answered those questions. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go out to the parishioners of Trinity first of all, and then if I have no more questions from them, then I will go out to everyone else. The gentleman here in the blue shirt, thank you. If you could tell us your name and where you're from, thank you.
Chris Vautier, Le Catal, Roselle, north side of the stream. Good evening, candidates. Firstly, I'd like to thank you all for putting your names forward for election. It's a big deal, so thank you. In 2022, the States Assembly approved the carbon neutral roadmap, along with the associated cost implications. They later agreed to establish an independent climate council to oversee the roadmap progression. The council has recently reported that Jersey's not on track to meet its 2030 climate targets and needs to spend more money. Jersey's carbon emissions per capita are 3.5 tonnes per annum. The UK is double that, Europe is double that, and the US is about 5 times that per capita. My question is, do any of the candidates still support spending upwards of £300 million to further reduce our already small carbon emissions when we are already one of the best performing jurisdictions in the Western world? And that's true this time.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Sorry, nearly done. If yes, please explain the tangible benefits to islanders. If no, would you be prepared to bring a motion to the Assembly to scrap the current failing plan and propose something that actually is workable and affordable for all islanders?
Thank you very much, Chris. Okay, anyone from Trinity who would like to ask a question? There's a gentleman at the front here. Thank you. Yes, if you tell us your name and where you live, please.
My name is Peter Funk, and I live in Trinity.
Thank you.
My question is about health care. You've all spoken, either directly tonight or in your manifestos, about government spending and government efficiency. I'd like to ask you, does that apply to health care? My reason for asking that is this. Health and Care Jersey is our largest government ministry in terms of expenditure and numbers of employees. They're spending roughly £400 million this year out of a budget for the total government expenditure of 1.8 million. They're employing something north of 3,000 employees. Do you favor, and by the way, that expansion has taken place pretty much at 30% over the last 3 or 4 years. Do you favor the continued expansion of healthcare, or do you view it as an area that could be reduced? And if so, how?
Thank you very much for your question. Thank you. Okay, we're going to start with Ian Gorst.
Thank you. The world has changed since the carbon neutral roadmap was agreed by the states. I don't think it is fit for purpose. I think that the statistics that you quoted to us are absolutely right. The JEC is providing us already with carbon neutral electricity. We just have to remind ourselves of that. So the benefit of us reducing our carbon footprint any greater seems totally out of kilter with what's happening around the rest of the world, and therefore we shouldn't put that extra burden on islanders. So if it needs repealing, then of course I'd be prepared to do that. That money is better used on making sure that we are prepared for the effects of global warming, which are real. Sea levels are rising, and we'll have to spend a lot of money on those effects. So that's where we should be prioritising our funding. No government department should be immune from delivering efficiencies, and that includes healthcare. Which one of us haven't had a letter after the point that we should have been for a consultation or something at the hospital, after it's already taken place. Tom is doing a really great job in trying to deliver efficiencies with the restructuring and the new health board and the extra money that he's got for digitising systems in the health service. It is still going to cost more and take a greater percentage of our budget, but of course they should do that efficiently. Thank you.
Right. Yes. The carbon neutral question. I've got hand on heart. I think we should stay with it. I'm a huge advocate for sustainability. The world over, we've got a problem, and we're part of we're part of the globalized economy here. Our children are growing up. They're concerned about the environment that they're growing into, and we just need to keep that light burning. And I think through that message of keeping in with that net zero policy and trying to follow it through, then I think that we're doing our bit for the world. In respect to healthcare, it's very close to my heart. I made a long-term care application for my wife within the last year. I'm a huge advocate for the health, the well-being of the community. And I today in the JP made a statement that if we could cut adult, or if we could increase adult activity by 1 hour per week, we would save over 2,000 people would save up to 4 million off that healthcare
Thank you,
budget.
Carl. I need to stop you there. Thank you.
Thank you. Carbon neutral roadmap. I think we should move away from performative environmentalism and do things which are proportionate to the island's needs. We should be focusing on what we have direct control over, which are many things that can make positive contributions to the environment, whether that's waste management, insulation, solar power on roofs and brownfield sites. So I think we should move to those things because they're in our control and they have a direct impact. In terms of government spending on health, absolutely yes. It should not be exempt from the pressures. But they should not come through just a slash and burn. They should come through redesigning the services, not just cutting. That comes from often delayering organisations and taking out unnecessary layers that add little value and duplicate. It comes from moving those resources to the front line where value is actually seen. And many of these jobs are actually resistant to AI, so there's a double benefit there from people working in care. And it can be achieved in large part by the normal process of turnover, digitisation and retirement. So it's about having a plan to gain the benefits from those processes and bank them as parts of savings or indeed reinvestment in the front line.
Thank you. When it comes to the carbon neutral roadmap, 300 million is an eye-watering sum, and I think we do need to revisit that. I think there are other things that we could do with the Climate Emergency Fund which would bring better benefit. So we could use some of that fund to improve our deteriorating road network. We could improve our cycling and our walking routes, our carpooling, and we could have more buses during the day and during the evening. One thing that we're not very good at in Jersey is in our recycling. We could certainly be reducing a lot of our on-island waste. We've got the possibility of having to replace the energy from waste plant at a huge cost in the future. That could significantly be reduced. So I think we need to focus on things that we can control, knowing that we are a small island, and develop a proportionate solution. When it comes to healthcare, I am very worried about the level of investment, not the level of investment, but the level of funding going into healthcare. I'd really like to see a sustainable funding model. I'd like to see a health strategy, and I'd also like to see a workforce strategy so that we can really have an understanding of where our spending is going. We know that we've got significant challenges in service performance. We seem to be water cannoning money at the health service,
Thank
but
you,
it doesn't.
Helen, that's time.
Oh, I apologise.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. To be honest, I'm not really sure what status the Carbon Neutral Roadmap document actually has these days. Does it actually mean anything? To me, it appears to be a late document. Bereft of life, it rests in peace. It has ceased to be. We're not following it. So what's the point in even having regard for it? I think that there's a degree to which that's a shame, because there are lots of things that we could be doing that I think the public would actually like. We really got off to a bad start with this by spending taxpayers' money subsidising affluent households to buy their second or third vehicle so long as it was electric, whilst at the same time telling poorer people in town they're not even allowed to have one car. So carrots for some people, sticks for other was always going to alienate people and upset them. But there are good things we should still be doing. Jersey Electricity Company's just started its Green Skills Academy. That's going to give young people apprenticeships, skills, jobs, income. They're going to go out and make people's homes more energy efficient. That's going to reduce bills. That's good for the environment. That kind of thing and part of the agenda is something that we should still be pursuing, because that generates prosperity and it's good for the environment. Win-win. That's the kind of thing we ought to be focusing on. Peter, the health budget is having to go up because people are living longer and delivering healthcare is becoming more expensive. We should be clear about that fact, but that doesn't mean that services should have free rein to be delivered inefficiently. That applies to all government departments, including health. There are drastic improvements that could be made in their systems and IT, but not on cutting back services. It's on admin that we can make those savings.
Regarding the carbon neutral roadmap, I will actually amend it to things I'd mentioned earlier, like giving grants for solar panels. That's an example. Regarding the health budget, it actually went up by £35 million in 2025. And while that happened, the waiting list of people waiting more than 12 months for a consultation went up to 1,307 from 812 the year before. So we're putting more money in and more people are waiting. So that doesn't stack up for me. And I know somebody who had to wait, I was told they had to wait up for 2 years for a hip operation when they had serious mobility issues, and they actually paid for it themselves. And I know a number of other people that have been in similar situations. And when people have paid in 30 or 40 years, they paid once, they shouldn't have to pay again. They should be first in the queue, not last. And that's why I believe we can sort out public spending, focus it where it's needed, for some of you good people to get the service that you deserve. Thank you.
I think we're probably at what might be best described as peak health spending. And I say that because obviously there's a new hospital to build, costs have been going up, cost of living is going up, whether we like it or not. But I sense that the strategy is to switch away from reactive medicine, hello, oh dear, this needs surgery, to preventive medicine. Catching people early, giving them some drugs that might stop the growth or whatever it is. It's a huge saving. It may mean that we expand medical care in one form or another, but the overall effect should be cheaper. Now, I'm of an age where we used to call climate change weather. And I have to say, anyone who thinks
that Jersey's contribution to international carbon emissions is of any significance whatsoever needs their head tested. I'm all for scrapping this ludicrous concept, which I'm afraid to say previous politicians have used as a mechanism to acquire extra votes via the Greens and the environmentalists. Entirely mercenary outlook with no thinking it through to what it really means. Forget it, and I'll be happy to lead the charge on that one.
It's always a pleasure to follow Guy. He clearly has not been outside today. Chris, every time we ask the public about their priorities in Jersey, there's a word that comes out a lot, environment. But I can tell you, when it comes to voting money for environmental stuff, it's far more difficult. The £300 million you've mentioned is probably on the low side. It would be a lot more than that. It will never happen because the money will not be there and it will not be voted. You're right, the Climate Council have said that we're way off target. We're not going to meet that target. I'm trying to be realistic about this. So what I've done recently, I've taken that ban in the carbon neutral roadmap, that ban that says no more petrol or diesel vehicles after 2030. I've put that in the bin. I've taken the people that say to me, no more oil-fired boilers after 2030. I've delayed that decision. We've got to be pragmatic about this. We are going to save carbon, and we're going to do it because of market forces. Electric vehicles are now comparable in price. People are going to get fed up with paying the prices for oil and diesel. They will buy a second-hand electric vehicle, and we'll save it that way. People will move to electric heating and cooling because the cost of heating oil will be extortionate. But we mustn't forget, we must try and do our bit. We can't opt out of climate change. Jersey's not, as we can see today, we can't be unaffected. So we must try to do what we can. But you're right, the carbon neutral roadmap was 5 years ago. We're in a different place now. Peter, I haven't got much time, but health prevention is a direction we've got to go in.
Thank you. Elaine, we'll come to you next. The mic is at your end, I believe. You got the microphone? Wonderful, thank you.
Chris, I think what I'll just do is read out what's actually in my leaflet. Respond to climate change by targeting our spending to protect Jersey from climate change and ensure its resilience by enhancing sea defences and ensuring continued sustainable supply of water and energy, and promoting climate-friendly transport, building and energy. So that's where I think we should be putting our money. We should be putting our money into protecting Jersey and doing what's right for the island, because nothing we do is going to make a difference to the temperature anywhere in the world. But we do need to make sure we're doing the right thing for Jersey to make sure we continue to have the quality of life that we enjoy and that we don't have massive flooding, for example. Healthcare, Peter, yes, I think health is not immune from being asked to make efficiencies. The Health Board, I'm sure Deputy Binney will say more, but they have had a financial recovery plan for, I think, several years now, and they have been making savings. They've been delivering savings for the island against their budget. There is an increasing demand for services, but we do need to look to fund to provide those services as efficiently and effectively as possible, because if we don't, we will have an ever-increasing black hole that we just simply cannot meet without increasing more taxes for everybody. So we do have to get more efficient in terms of providing healthcare in the same way that we do everything else. Thank you.
We need to revisit our direction on the carbon neutral roadmap. On-island commissions have fallen by 48% since 1990. That's largely due to the provision of reduction in energy provision. The target is to reach a 68% reduction by 2030. That's unrealistic. I don't think we can achieve that. And I certainly do not support spending hundreds of millions of pounds to get there. Yes, we do need a plan. We need a plan that works for Jersey. We need a plan that's affordable, and a plan that continues to support a reduction in our emissions, but it needs to be, as I say, right for our island and our islanders. We have invested significantly in the health service since Tom took over, because we had fallen behind in a number of areas, Peter, as Peter knows, we've worked together and against each other at times in the past. We've invested significantly in frontline staff, more doctors, more nurses, more specialists. Most important thing we need to do now is preventative care. There's been a significant increase for the budget for that. And of course, the digitization of the service with AI, which will enable significant operational gains in the future. We're all living longer. We're going to need to invest more in health. There's no getting away from it over the years if we're going to be properly looked after. Thank you.
The carbon neutral roadmap is an interesting one. I think somehow Jersey tend to compete with the rest of the world, and yet we are just a dot. When you go on the map of the world, you can hardly see where we are. And yet we want to punch ourselves in the chest like some of those animals in my backyard in Uganda. And you're like, you know, it's just not necessary. So it's important that we cut back and do things that we can chew. As far as health is concerned, I want to pick on the aspect of mental health, for example. How do you think Jersey has done with mental health? Do you know the statistics of how many people are dying on suicidal cases in Jersey? Do you know how many young people are queuing up at camps waiting to be seen? I work in the children's service as a child care officer. I can tell you we cannot underestimate the cost for health. Let alone the construction halubalu. I think humanity, health is wealth. If we just close our eyes, blink a little bit, and forget, something else is not good in our doors, just like COVID showed us. So spending on health, I go for it. Thank you.
Martin. Thank you.
I'll deal with your question very quickly, Chris. No is the first answer. I don't approve of spending £300 million more, and yes to a complete review to something that's a lot more sensible. I want to spend my time talking about health, and I'd like to thank Ian for his kind comments and say that I'm a little bit disappointed with some of the glib and casual comments that have been made about the health service. If you reduce the budget now, people are going to die before their time, and that's absolutely, I can tell you that's completely true. When we arrived, 2 years ago, my assistant ministers and I, the place was in disarray, in my opinion. It was disjointed, it was toxic, we had bullying going on, and it was just, there were desperately poor relations throughout the system. To the extent that our chief officer at the time refused point blank to see Dr. Andrew Mitchell. I think most of you might know, he's a Trinity resident, and I had a point blank refusal to have a meeting with him and the chief officer. We've had to make a lot of changes to the senior management team, which we've done. We had to address the budgetary problems. Our digitization was terrible. We were rated on an international scale of 1 to 7. We came out at 0. So we've managed to secure $8 million a year for 5 years to digitize. And that because digitization is something that's absolutely crucial for an efficient service. There was no budget for prevention measures. We've now got a budget for $4 million. If Peter wants to spend some more time with me, I'll go through it with him in detail. We've got another 4 years before we can have anything that vaguely resembles a decent health service, but it can be done. Thank you.
I said in my opening comments that we need doers. Tom's a doer, and I fully support what he's doing in very difficult circumstances. Of course, there's scope for savings and efficiency. There is everywhere. The carbon neutral roadmap is one of my hobbies. Now, to say it should be scrapped is rather like going around the battlefield and bayoneting the dead. It's dead. It was dead the day it was born. Remember, the States Assembly voted unanimously for something that was not workable. In my opening speech, I commented about bad decisions. That was a bad decision. It has not been implemented. I said in another speech, it's like having a roadmap to get from St Helier to Goree, and we're going via St Juan and Guernsey. We've never implemented it. The roadmap required a 6% annual reduction in emissions. In the first year, it was 0.2%. The government hasn't even published the 2024 figures, but I'm prepared to bet that they're not 6%. Of course, we scrap it, and we put in place a more sensible plan to reduce emissions by 2050, which is far more doable. And I do think Jersey has to play its part. Every community in the world of 100,000 can say we don't matter. But I think we can do it without spending anywhere near 300 million, even a fraction of that amount. Thank you.
Chris, yes, I'm in agreement. I don't think it's a sensible use of money. I also don't think we can afford it. So I would support a review for a more balanced approach. And really for me, I'd like to turn more inwardly. We need to invest better in our infrastructure, in our buses, in enabling people to get around the island in a more fun, cohesive way. And I think that in return actually helps to drive down the use of carbon neutrality and kind of getting our way towards not using cars and things like that. So I do think there's a more sensible approach and actually getting our kind of ducks in a row here initially before worrying about big expenditures. In terms of healthcare, yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement. I've done some reading on it, and I do think Tom, he's done an excellent job. It has been a mess, the hospital. We have to get on with it, and he's got us to an incredible position right now where actually we are going to get a new hospital. So I support the fact we've got to get this delivered. But it's not the only answer. You know, we have to make sure we've got a healthy population and a healthy community. And I mentioned in my stub speech about preventative health, social prescribing, that we now have investment to actually enable this a lot more. And there's a community of people over here incredibly passionate about wanting to drive that strategy. And again, it's a good example of the experts who are here ready and waiting. We need to use them to enable this island to become fitter and healthier and take those long-term pressures off when we've got an aging population challenge coming up in the next 30 years. So it is important that we focus on preventative health. Thank you.
It's not more sorry. It's not much more to say about the carbon neutral roadmap, really. For me, I think we should be investing in simple things and changing legislation to improve the housing stock. So we build low carbon houses, increase solar panels on roofs and things like that, and improve our recycling strategy. A lot of people who come to the island as visitors are quite shocked by the lack of recycling we do. So I think that's an area we could certainly improve on. And I think that's what we should be concentrating on. As for health, a little while ago, when I worked in sport, which was quite a long time ago, somebody did a study for one thoracic surgeon, you could have 10 personal trainers. And that was a much better model for improving health than it is cutting people's chests open. I agreed that, Tom, where we are with, I've used it a little while ago. The hospital had to go and have an x-ray, and it was incredibly efficient. And I think there's been incredible developments down there. Digitisation is going to help, and we need to move away from having letters sent to us. But I still believe that really engaging with our workforce is a really good way of improving services, and I'd like to see us working more with our frontline staff and getting their suggestions on how things can be better. Thank you.
Chris, thank you for your question. I think, as everyone has more or less said, it's absolutely crazy to be considering that sum of money, 360 million or whatever it happens to be. I believe it should be a priority of the next Council of Ministers to deal with this issue, show some strong leadership and put in place a sensible plan that is proportionate for Jersey to ensure that we do our bit in the community, both locally and internationally, but it's realistic and affordable. Quite frankly, the current carbon neutral roadmap is neither of those. It's completely unrealistic. Peter, you were asking about health. I think Tom was doing an excellent job in very difficult circumstances, but nobody, no department should be exempted from ensuring they deliver value for money. What we need to do is cut out middle management, excessive layers that perhaps exist, make sure the digitization goes ahead. It's not the first time there's been digitization. I recall back in, I think, about 2015, £25 million was allocated to that project, followed by a further sum of money. And I know there is no digital records of any value that exists, and I'm sure Tom will get fully to grips with that. I do feel strongly about preventative medicine. There's an upfront cost, a need. I call it an investment, actually, frankly, but it means there's long-term better solutions if we get to people early, and I think we need to consider that type of investment to ensure that we manage costs over the long term. The other thing I would say is the capital side of the hospital, the building of the hospital, controlling that budget and ensuring we don't have overspends. We must ensure that's the case.
Always difficult to be number 17. However, what I would say in relation to your question, Chris, is that there's a lot being said, but all of us in this room need to play our part in doing what we can to, recycle, walk where we need to, use the buses, etc., because we do need to protect the environment for the next generations. So I think we in the room need to all do our little bit, our recycling, as I said, and in relation to the roadmap, I just think we park it, we do something simple that's suitable for us, but I think we can all play our part in that to protect it for the future. In relation to your question, Peter, I think it's there's a lot being said about this, and I think that there is 2/3 of our population who actually, as part of their pay packet, are getting healthcare as a provision. Sorry. And I think we should encourage people who have got healthcare as a provision to use that healthcare. Now, I know that that would be private patients. However, if we utilise that money and they're paying, somebody else is paying for their care, that means that we can pay for care for people who don't have private healthcare. I hope that makes sort of some sense, but what I'm trying to say is that there's value to people who've got something to use it, and insurance.
Sorry about that. Okay, that's everyone, isn't it? And that is it. That brings us to 9:09. Thank you very much for your patience. Just before everyone leaves, just a few things to mention. I do appreciate that a number of you have not had the opportunity to ask your question. Please do email the candidates and please do speak to them when they're out and about, and they're often at the doors as people are leaving, so please do speak to them then. You can find their information on the vote.je website. Just a quick mention that postal votes need to be received, please, by the GREF by 12 noon on Sunday the 7th of June. And you can now vote early. So if you're going to be away, the St Paul's Centre is now open and it will be there until the 1st of June if you would like to go and cast your votes. Election day, as we know, is Sunday the 7th of June. Polling stations are going to be open that day from 8 in the morning until 8 o'clock in the evening. A reminder to take your photo ID with you. It is customary for one of the candidates to close the evening and to say a vote of thanks to everybody. And tonight that is Serena, so I'll just hand over to... Oh, it's Sam tonight. It's been a long day and it's very hot, isn't it? Apologies. Sam, another S, over to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we show our appreciation for our chairperson this evening?
Thank you.
Hannah has chaired most of these, and tonight is her last one, but she's got to spend lots of time with all of us up here. Some people have all the luck, but we've been very appreciative of the job you've done keeping us all in order, so thank you very much.
You've all been amazing. Thank you.
Could we also thank our volunteer for handing the microphone round and the technical crew who've been in charge of the live stream as well? And most importantly, all of you for giving your time to come and hear us. Thank you all very much on behalf of all the candidates.
Thank you and good evening, everyone. Thank you.